Yesterday was reported as the best day of practice for the Las Vegas Raiders, according to their coach, Antonio Pierce. This is great timing because they have a big game coming up on Sunday against the Carolina Panthers. Now, it's not a huge game because the Raiders can't win or because it'll be a high scoring or defensive battle. It's a big deal because the Raiders have a chance to prove they're the real deal by dominating the Panthers, and they just might. But they can't take the Panthers lightly, especially with some key players set to miss the game. However, the Raiders are also getting two important players back. One of them is Jackson Powers Johnson, and I've got some inside information on him. In week 1, he was out as a healthy scratch. Technically, he wasn't completely healthy since he had an illness, and many thought it was just the flu. But when he was out again in week 2, we knew something else was going on. This week, Antonio Pierce spoke with Jackson, making it clear how badly the team needs him. This conversation led many to believe that maybe Jackson had been holding himself out due to concerns like a possible concussion. The good news is, Jackson Powers Johnson is expected to play against the Panthers. He won't be starting yet, but he'll be rotating in with Cody Whitehair, either every other drive or possibly every other quarter. This is huge for the Raiders because their run game has struggled. For example, Zamir White has had 11 runs that went for either 0 or just 1 yard, out of 35 total carries in the first 2 games. That's a big issue. Antonio Pierce has said that the team will adjust their scheme to what works best for Zamir White, such as power runs. And having Jackson Paris Johnson back will help a lot with that. He's an excellent offensive lineman, and his return should help open up the Raiders' running game. When you think about Dylan Parham, he's much better in a zone scheme compared to a power scheme because he's only about 285 pounds. The same goes for Andre James, who weighs around 270. He performs better in zone schemes as well. Although Andre has had some struggles in both power and zone blocking in the past, and this year he's had a bit of a hard time with zone blocking. Still, he's definitely more effective as a center in zone schemes. Now, Jackson Powers Johnson, on the other hand, can handle both zone and power schemes equally well. Even though his nickname is Pow, this guy can play both styles effectively. For example, if the Raiders decide to run a power play like Power O or a counter where the guard pulls, Jackson will bulldoze defenders with his strength. At the same time, if they run a zone play to the outside, Jackson's quick feet and explosiveness will allow him to block the 3-technique defender with ease. This versatility will be a big boost for the Raiders' success. In pass protection, the Raiders often use 5-man protection. This means their 3 interior linemen are responsible for taking on 2 defensive tackles, figuring out who blocks who. That usually leads to one-on-one matchups for Cody Whitehair or Dylan Parham, while Andre James might have to help double-team one of the defenders. But with Jackson Powers Johnson, there won't be as much need for double teams. He can handle most defensive tackles on his own, which allows the Raiders to shift Andre James to help Parham more often. This will immediately improve their pass blocking. While their pass protection started rough, especially in the first game and a half, the Raiders improved significantly in the second half of the Ravens game. However, the biggest improvement we'll see from Jackson Powers Johnson will likely be in the run game, where his strength and agility can really make a difference. I'm excited to see him play, and from what I'm hearing, he's expected to be on the field against the Panthers. If, for some reason, he doesn't play, the situation might be worse than people realize. But for now, it looks like we don't have anything to worry about, and I'm eager to watch Jackson Powers Johnson grow as a player. He's truly a great talent. So far, Jackson Powers Johnson hasn't been able to play much, and that's been a big issue. But remember, he's still young. He only spent 3 years in college before entering the NFL, which is rare for offensive linemen. Most stay for 4 or 5 years, and some even for 6. I'm really excited to see what the future holds for him. In more good news, Tyree Wilson is officially playing against the Carolina Panthers. Now, I've heard some of the jokes about how people barely noticed when he wasn't playing, but honestly, from the few snaps he played in week 1 against the Chargers, I saw potential. He got to the quarterback once or twice, pushed his blocker back, and set the edge. If you compare that to how the other defensive ends, besides Max Crosby, have performed, it's clear that the Raiders' defensive ends have really struggled. We also signed Kalavan Chason, who's known for his quickness and good first step, but it hasn't quite worked out for him so far in his career. It might turn around with the Raiders, but I believe Tyree Wilson gives the team the best shot at applying pressure on the quarterback outside of Max Crosby. The Panthers' offensive line is solid, so I wouldn't be shocked if they have a good game against the Raiders' defensive front. However, Tyree Wilson has a favorable matchup. He'll be going up against Ike Ekwonu, who's around 6 feet 4 inches or 6 feet 5 inches, not super tall or long. This gives Tyree Wilson an advantage, and I'm looking forward to seeing him use that to his benefit. Even if Tyree Wilson doesn't rack up sacks, I want to see him collapse the pocket and make the quarterback Andy Dalton uncomfortable. The Panthers will undoubtedly have a game plan to deal with Max Crosby. They'll double team him on nearly every play, with a tight end or running back helping out, and they'll probably slide protection toward Christian Wilkins as well. That's why this is the week Tyree Wilson needs to step up. He has a great opportunity to disrupt the Panthers' offense, and we need him to make his presence felt. Tyree Wilson was the 7th overall pick, and while he had a knee injury, I'm glad to see him back and ready to make an impact for the Raiders. This game against the Panthers is his chance to show what he's capable of, and if he has any upside, this is the time to prove it. Now, for some less exciting news, Divine Diablo is most likely out for this game, which means Luke Masterson will probably step in to start. Tommy Eichenberg is expected to be healthy and available, but we shouldn't expect him to take on a big role yet. He'll likely be on special teams while Masterson steps in as the starting linebacker. I've watched some of Luke Masterson's snaps, and to be honest, he's been just average. He hasn't had much consistent playing time, but he did get some action when Diablo got hurt against the Ravens. His performance in the preseason wasn't great either, so hopefully, he can bounce back and show his potential. One player I'm really excited about is Amari Gaynor. He looked fantastic in the preseason, and if Diablo is out, which seems almost certain, I hope the Raiders give Gaynor a shot. While I had high hopes for Masterson, I'm not sure if he's ready. If Masterson struggles, I'd love to see Gaynor step in. Masterson had a play against the Ravens where he was a step too slow, missing a key read that could have turned into a big gain for Lamar Jackson. The Panthers have an explosive tight end, Jatavian Sanders, and one bad play from Masterson could easily result in a touchdown. A few bad reads could cost the Raiders 21 points, which would be tough to overcome. I still believe the Raiders can win this game, but with Divine Diablo out, it's going to be crucial for guys like Luke Masterson or Amari Gaynor to step up. Both of them have a chance to take the starting spot if they perform well, especially since Diablo and Robert Spillane don't have contracts for next year. I'm excited for Sunday's game. The Panthers' defensive line isn't that strong, and with their best run defender, Derek Brown, out for the year, the Raiders should be able to take advantage of that. Let's see how it all plays out. Let me know what you think in the comments, give the video a thumbs up, subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one.